Man, something interesting is brewing with this team right now. And it's not the kind of stuff that immediately blows up on headlines. But if you really pay attention, you can feel that something bigger might be coming. There are some quiet moves, some pressure building in certain spots, and even a few changes that could completely shift how things look on the field this season. And honestly, it feels like we're right at that point where everything could either click or raise a lot of questions. But first, click the like button and write "Go Niners" in the comments. Something quietly shifted inside the San Francisco 49ers over the past few days, and if you weren't paying close attention, you might have missed how these subtle moves could ripple into the entire 2026 season. Because while headlines usually chase star power, what's happening right now is deeper. It's about competition, pressure, and evolution across key positions that could define how far this team goes. Let's start with what looks simple on the surface, but carries real weight. The 49ers made a couple of roster moves just before training camp. They signed punter Jack Boster, a left-footed rookie with a unique journey that took him through Michigan State, Utah, and Texas, where he logged 53 games and totaled over 9,300 punting yards. He comes in on a 3-year deal worth $3.1 million, which immediately tells you this isn't just a camp body. There's intent here. There's belief in upside. At the same time, the team placed tight end Khalil Dinkins on the non-football injury list. An undrafted player out of Penn State, Dinkins was seen as a developmental piece with athletic upside. His production didn't fully reflect his physical tools, but scouts highlighted his explosiveness, fluid movement, and potential as a versatile blocker with receiving traits. Unfortunately, an injury away from the facility forced the Niners to open up a roster spot, putting his immediate future with the team on pause. Now, why does this matter more than it seems? Because this sets up a real competition at punter, a position that often gets overlooked but is absolutely critical. The 49ers are moving on from Thomas Morstead, who served as a temporary solution last season. His experience helped stabilize the unit, especially given his familiarity with special teams coordinator Brant Boyer from their time with the New York Jets. But the reality is, his leg strength showed signs of decline, and he struggled to consistently pin opponents deep. Enter the battle: Jack Boster versus Corliss Waitman. Waitman, who joined the team in free agency, quietly put together a stronger statistical season than Morstead last year. He ranked 3rd in punts inside the 20, 5th in hang time, and 5th in limiting return yards. Those are not small details. Those are field position-changing metrics. And in tight NFL games, field position is everything. But Boster brings something different. He's left-footed. And that matters more than most fans realize. The spin of the football off a lefty punter changes how returners track and handle the ball. Teams actually simulate this in practice by bringing in specific punters just to prepare for that spin. So now, the 49ers have two very different profiles competing for one job, and whoever wins won't just be punting. They'll also serve as the holder for kicker Eddie Piñeiro. And that's another key layer here. Piñeiro was nearly automatic last season, leading the NFL in field goal percentage at almost 97%. The team rewarded him with a multi-year extension, signaling full trust. But a kicker is only as consistent as the operation around him. The snap, the hold, the timing. So whoever wins this punter job must build immediate chemistry with long snapper Tabor Pepper and Piñeiro. That trio has to function flawlessly. So yes, this small roster move, it's actually tied directly to one of the most reliable scoring weapons the team has. Now, zooming out, this is all happening as training camp approaches, a time when every rep matters, every detail is evaluated, and every role starts to take shape. And while special teams are sorting themselves out, there's a much bigger storyline brewing on the defensive side of the ball, because there's growing pressure around Nick Bosa. And it's not just external noise, it's rooted in facts. Bosa's 2022 Defensive Player of the Year season was dominant. 18, 5 sacks, 90 pressures, 30 quarterback hits, and 19 tackles for loss. That was elite production. But since then, the numbers have dipped. Not drastically, but enough to raise questions, especially for a player earning around $30 million per year. Injuries have played a major role. He's now dealt with multiple ACL issues, including 2 at the NFL level, with 2 surgeries on the same knee. Last season, he played just over 2 games before suffering another injury in 2025. And when he's not on the field, the impact is undeniable. The 49ers finished last in the NFL with only 20 total sacks. Let that sink in. This is a defense built on pressure, on disruption, on collapsing the pocket. And without Bosa at full strength, that identity fades. Now here's where things get even more interesting. There's a financial clock ticking. Bosa's cap hit for 2027 is projected to be $54.9 million. That's not sustainable unless he returns to elite game-changing form. So 2026 isn't just another season, it's a defining one. If he stays healthy and produces at a high level, he could earn another contract restructure or extension. But if injuries continue or production stalls, the organization may be forced to make a difficult decision. This is what makes this year feel different. It's not just about winning games. It's about proving value, durability, and long-term viability. And while that pressure builds on one side of the defense, there's also a fascinating development happening with Fred Warner. Because under defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, there's a possibility that Warner's role could expand. We already know what he is, one of the smartest linebackers in football, elite in coverage, a leader, a captain, a player with incredible instincts. But this offseason, Warner has been working on something new, taking advantage of one-on-one pass rush opportunities, especially against running backs in protection. That's not something he's been heavily used for in the past. But if that gets added to his game, it opens up an entirely new dimension for this defense. Imagine Warner not just diagnosing plays and covering ground, but actively attacking the quarterback in designed situations. That's unpredictable. That's dangerous. And that's exactly the kind of evolution that can elevate a defense from good to elite. So when you step back and connect all these dots, the punter competition, the importance of special teams chemistry, the pressure mounting on Nick Bosa, and the potential expansion of Fred Warner's role, you start to see a team at a crossroads, not rebuilding, not resetting, but refining, adjusting, and quietly preparing for something bigger. And now, I want to hear from you. Do you think this added pressure on Nick Bosa is justified heading into 2026? Or are fans being too critical given his injuries? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is just getting started. And here's where everything starts to connect in a way that should genuinely excite and maybe even concern 49ers fans heading into 2026. Because when you look at the potential evolution of Fred Warner's role alongside the uncertainty surrounding Nick Bosa, you begin to see a defense that could either reinvent itself or struggle to find its identity. Fred Warner isn't just another linebacker. He's the heartbeat of this defense. Year after year, he's shown an ability to diagnose plays before they even develop, reacting with precision that very few players in the league can match. His football IQ is often described as elite, and that's not just talk. It shows up on every snap. He's directing traffic, adjusting alignments, and making sure everyone is in the right position. But what stood out this offseason is something different. Warner has been actively working on becoming more of a pass-rushing threat, particularly in one-on-one situations against running back. That's a detail that might seem minor at first, but it's actually a major potential shift. Historically, Warner hasn't been heavily utilized as a blitzer. His value has come from coverage, tackling efficiency, and leadership. But if Raheem Morris starts dialing up packages where Warner attacks the pocket, that changes the math for opposing offenses. Because now, you're not just accounting for the defensive line, you have to account for a linebacker who can close space quickly, exploit mismatches, and create pressure from unexpected angles. And considering Warner's athleticism and explosiveness, this is not just theoretical. There's real potential here for impact plays, sacks, hurried throws, even turnovers. And let's not forget, according to longtime linebackers coach Johnny Holland, Warner has a track record of identifying weaknesses in his game and fixing them. Early in his career, tackling consistency was an issue. He missed 18 tackles as a rookie. He worked on it, refined his technique, and improved significantly. That tells you everything about his mindset. If he's focusing on pass rushing now, it's not random. It's intentional. At 29 years old, many players plateau. But within the organization, there's a strong belief that Warner is still ascending. General Manager John Lynch has echoed that sentiment. And if that's true, then the 49ers might be unlocking a new version of a player who is already among the best at his position. Now tie that back to the bigger picture. If Nick Bosa returns to form, healthy, explosive, and dominant, and Fred Warner adds a legitimate pass-rushing dimension to his game, suddenly this defense regains its edge. It becomes unpredictable again. It becomes aggressive in new ways. And that could compensate for some of the inconsistencies we've seen in recent seasons. But, and this is the reality, there are still question marks. Bosa's durability is one of them. The defensive line's overall production is another. Finishing last in the league in sacks is not just a statistical anomaly, it's a red flag. That has to improve, and it can't just rely on one player. The entire unit needs to elevate. Meanwhile, the special teams battle we talked about earlier is going to quietly play a role in field position, momentum, and even scoring consistency. If the 49ers can flip the field more effectively, pin opponents deep, and maintain that near-perfect field goal efficiency with Eddie Pinheiro, those hidden yards and points add up over the course of a season. This is how complete teams are built. Not just through stars, but through details. And that's what makes this moment so fascinating. Because the 49ers aren't making loud, headline-grabbing moves right now. They're making calculated adjustments. They're betting on internal growth. They're trusting that players like Bosa can bounce back, that Warner can evolve, and that competition at even the smallest positions, like punter, can raise the overall standard. So the question becomes, will it all come together? Will Bosa silence the doubts and remind everyone why he was Defensive Player of the Year? Will Fred Warner unlock a new level and become even more dangerous? Will the special teams unit turn into a hidden advantage instead of a question mark? These are the storylines that will define the 2026 season before it even begins. And if you've been watching closely, you know, this team is walking a very fine line between dominance and uncertainty. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe this defense can return to elite form if Bosa stays healthy and Warner expands his role? Or are there still too many concerns heading into the season? Drop your take in the comments. And if you're enjoying this kind of deep dive coverage, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything as we get closer to kickoff. Go Niners!